It is like a finger pointing away to the moon.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but there's things in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do that Bruce Lee didn't actually even write. I'll go a step further and say that there are things that the Bruce Lee Jeet Kune Do fanboys have been running around saying for years, quoting their Lord and Savior, Bruce Lee. And believe it or not, Bruce Lee didn't even say that stuff. So I was really surprised to learn that Bruce Lee never actually even said this. So I was going through my morning routine doing the Yi Li Chen Yi Jin Jing Zhong, and then practicing the Guangping Yang style Tai Chi form as my morning mobility routine. And after I go through my little morning Neigong routine, well, I walk anywhere from 3 to 5 miles.
And every day, I practice martial arts.
Now, while I'm doing all of that, I like to listen to podcasts or audiobooks. And this particular morning, I was listening to Alex Richter, the Kung Fu genius.
Lots of gems, lots of Fuk Young.
On this particular episode, Alex was talking about a comment he received from this very zealous member of the Fuk Young fan club who insisted that basically everything Bruce accomplished in his life was because of Fuk Young. Now, if you're new here and you don't know who Fuk Young is, I go into more detail in another video I posted a few months ago, and I may eventually devote an entire video to this stuff with Bruce Lee and Fuk Young's relationship. But to keep things short, Fuk Young was friends with Bruce Lee's father, Li Hui Chin. When Bruce came to America, Fuk Young was the guy who gets him from San Francisco and drove him to Seattle. Fuk Young did all his Chinese orchestra kung fu, and he taught at this youth center for Chinese kids. He also worked at Ruby Chow's restaurant, so he and Bruce spent a lot of time together because they worked and they lived together. This was also the period when Bruce was trying to create his super kung fu style, so he would have been trying to sponge as much kung fu from Fuk Young as his teenage mind could hold. So like I was saying, Alex is on his podcast responding to this Fuk Young fan's claims that Fuk Young was responsible for everything that made Bruce Lee famous. Fuk Young was Bruce Lee's real teacher who taught him for 8 years, and everything that made up Bruce's philosophical views, which eventually became Jeet Kune Do. Yeah, Fuk Young taught Bruce Lee all of that stuff too. So Alex asked the guy what kinds of stuff did Fuk Young teach Bruce Lee specifically, and that guy had no idea that he was being set up at that point because he provided the noose to hang himself.
Yeah, people don't even know who the real teacher of Bruce Lee was, and the guy totally stepped on his own wee-wee with this here.
And maybe it was a different Fuk Young fanboy, but whoever it was, they made the same exact mistake claiming that Fuk Young taught Bruce Lee stuff that's written in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, which I'm about to expose in this video, because Bruce Lee never actually said what they're claiming Fuk Young taught him. Okay, if you follow my community feed here on YouTube, you may have seen a few quotes from the late Joe Louis about how Bruce Lee didn't actually write the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. I've had some self-proclaimed Jeet Kune Do scholars get upset about that quote, and I'm not sure why, because anyone with a working brain knows that Bruce Lee did not write the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. If Bruce had written it as a book, I'm sure he would not have called it the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, because as Bruce Lee historian John Little pointed out, saying the Tao of Jeet Kune Do means saying the way of the intercepting fist, which makes no sense. Secondly, when you look at the introduction written by Bruce's widow, Linda Lee Cadwell, she says that for 6 months, Bruce was laid up due to his back injury from August 1970 until February 1971. Bruce was working on a book, but there are scattered notes from before and after that period when Bruce was injured and he was unsure if he'd ever be able to practice Kung Fu again. The document was published, according to Linda, as a way for people to see how Bruce was thinking at various points along his journey, and it wasn't intended to be a how-to book or the gospel of Bruce Lee, as that goes completely against how Bruce would have been thinking at that time, and that's based on things Krishnamurti was teaching, and we know that Jiddu Krishnamurti had a huge influence on Bruce Lee's thinking. As Terry Tom, the author of The Straight Lead and other books on Jeet Kune Do, said in the I Am Bruce Lee documentary, Most of the writings in the Tao Jeet Kune Do are Western influences, and they come directly from fencing and boxing books, and you can take most of the passages in that book and trace them to their roots verbatim. He might have changed fighter from fencer, but pretty much it's all intact. So here we have someone who is an expert on Jeet Kune Do and a Bruce Lee historian saying that this book, at one point considered to have been Bruce Lee's magnum opus, is not even originally his. And I know that's not going to sit well with the members of the Church of Bruce Lee. It's like walking into a Sunday school class and telling people that Moses didn't actually write the Torah. But it's true. This was just Bruce playing around with ideas from various points in his development. And I'm of the opinion that Bruce Lee wouldn't have even wanted this thing published had it been up to him.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
And so that brings us back to the Fook Young fanboys claiming that Fook Young's influence on Bruce Lee is what made Bruce famous. It's what went into creating Jeet Kune Do, according to them. They said that the idea to take what is useful and discard what is not is a concept that Bruce Lee learned from Fook Young. Now, I'm walking and I'm hearing all of this in the podcast, and my brain instantly goes back to all the comments from the members of the Church of Bruce Lee who like to tell me how Jeet Kune Do means use everything, be like water, absorb what is useful and discard what is useless. Well, except they can never seem to be able to tell me what Bruce Lee actually discarded as being useless. And it's funny because the Fook Young fan club says that Fook Young completed Bruce Lee's Wing Chun training, but the Church of Bruce Lee says that, well, Bruce Lee discarded the Wing Chun. Meanwhile, I'm asking, what exactly did Fook Young allegedly teach Bruce Lee about Wing Chun that he didn't already know? And the Fook Young people don't know. And when I asked the Bruce Lee fanboys what Bruce Lee discarded from Wing Chun, well, they don't know either. And I think both of these groups need to spend less time repeating bullshit gossip on YouTube and go out and train something. But that's just me. So as I'm having this internal dialogue in my head, Alex says that whole absorb what is useful and discard what is useless thing was something hanging up at the Inosanto Academy, and that Bruce Lee never actually said it. So Bruce Lee never actually said it, but Bruce Lee got the saying from Fook Young. Then why is it hanging up in Dan Inosanto's school? Now, remember earlier when I was saying how there are things in the Tao Jeet Kune Do that were verbatim taken from other books? Well, this saying, research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is essentially your own, is in the dedication section of the Tao Jeet Kune Do. And I guess that seals the deal, right? Bruce Lee definitely said this if Linda Lee wrote it, and maybe, just maybe, Fook Young passed this on to him. Well, I decided to post about this on Facebook because I have a few friends who were Jeet Kune Do instructors under various organizations, but at least one of my Facebook friends is an actual student at the Inosanto Academy, and he spends a lot of time with Dan Inosanto. I was kind of hoping he would chime in, but it turned out that one of my shipmates from my time in the Navy provided a gem because he said, no, man, Bruce Lee didn't say that. It's a quote from Chairman Mao. In December 1936, 4 years before Bruce Lee was born, Mao Zedong published an essay, Problems of Strategy in China's Revolutionary War, where he wrote, all military laws and military theories which are in the nature of principles are the experience of past wars summed up by poor people in former days or in our own times. We should seriously study these lessons paid for in blood, which are a heritage of past wars. That is one point, but there is another. We should put these conclusions to the test of our own experience, assimilating what is useful, rejecting what is useless, and adding what is specifically our own. The latter is very important, for otherwise we cannot direct a war. Now, I think it's possible that Mao Zedong took this idea from a much older source. And if he did, well, I'm just saying, Bruce Lee was a philosophy student and an avid reader. If this came from some old Sun Tzu, Confucius, Taoism, or even Moism, I think Bruce Lee probably would have picked it up from one of those sources, just like everything else in his notes that made up the Tao Jeet Kune Do. So no, I don't think Fook Young taught this to Bruce Lee. This idea is probably as old as Taoism. The late Fong Ha used to say the Tao Te Ching is a process of stripping away day by day, while learning is a process of accumulation day by day. So in terms of Taoism, it's basically all useless and should be discarded, and in that process you absorb nothing, which brings you closer to the great Tao. I personally feel like Fook Young was not as big of an influence on Bruce Lee as this small group of vocal fans claim he was, but that's probably a topic for another video. And I actually have spoken more in depth on Fook Young's influence on Bruce Lee in a previous video. So if you want to check that out, it's in my video on Bruce Lee and his crazy history with Tai Chi. Like I've said before, my channel is more of a conversation as I'm learning more about Bruce Lee on my own. So I have a video planned on Bruce Lee's opinions when it comes to internal martial arts coming in the near future. So stay tuned for that video too. But while you wait on my next video, hey, keep training, remember to breathe, and I'll see you in the next video.